Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today we are going to be taking yet another look at Virtual World. Like I mentioned in the deck profile I put out yesterday or very recently, just depending on when what order these videos come out in. This deck has become my latest obsession. Again, I am a little late to the party, but you know, better late than never, as I always say. So yeah, I've been having a whole lot of fun with this build, this deck in general. This build, like I mentioned before, again in the profile, which should be linked in the description if you want to check that out, for a little bit more in-depth discussion, as well as additional gameplay to what you're going to be seeing today. Yeah, this is a fairly standard build. I'm not doing anything too out there with it, in terms of the main or extra deck. I like to do this a lot when I first get into a deck. I'll just focus on the basics, and then once we've got that down, then we can start exploring some interesting tech options, because it's one thing to, like, I don't know, I don't like learning a deck with unique techs that are like unique to that particular build, because then that kind of throws you off when you try to, you know, go into future builds. Plus, I feel like once you've like got a basic build down pat, then you have a better foundation for knowing what the deck needs in terms of techs and fringe options, which will give you a more educated opinion when you go into thinking about that. So that's how I like to learn decks, and that's generally how I recommend learning them as well, is to just pick a standard build. I need to one of these days, I've had this idea for quite a while, and I don't think it was my idea, I'm pretty sure a viewer suggested it, but one of these days I need to like just go into like how I go about building a deck. I should really do that, actually. I could even do that too. Now, okay, now I'm just thinking about future recordings for tonight, but who knows, you may or may not see that video here soon. So yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the build itself, again, because it's pretty standard. I'll go through it card by card, as I always do at the start of these videos, and then I think after that we're just going to jump into some gameplay. Now, I mentioned this a couple of times in the deck profile, and I want to make it clear here as well. I'm always asking for this anyway, but with this deck and these videos especially, I'm definitely going to be looking for your guys' comments, those of you who are familiar with Virtual World. Tell me out here a bit, just because I am still fairly new to this deck. I mean, obviously I've played against it a lot, but I'm kind of like freestyling it a little bit as far as learning this deck. I'm not studying any dedicated combo guides, so if I'm making inoptimal plays, or if I'm missing out on like some cards in the extra deck for an optimal board, do let me know. I know I'm missing Ultimate Zolkin and Crystal Wing. I haven't crafted those just yet because I want to make sure I have a better feel for the deck, or make sure I'm really ready to commit to the deck before I craft more ultra rares for it. That said, I do really like this deck, and I could definitely see myself, well, it's definitely going to be added to the, like, quote-unquote main roster of decks. I can even see myself laddering with it, but I definitely want to learn it a little more first. Excuse me, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to forgive me, I'm still dealing with my allergies at the moment, so I might be taking some pauses between words to, I guess, kind of catch my breath a little bit because my nose is so stuffed up. So, anyway, let's go ahead and break down the list card by card here, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at some gameplay. We've got 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Virtual World Hime Nyannyan, 3 Virtual World Mai-Hime Lulu, 3 Virtual World Xiezhi, I think, Jiji, 2 Virtual World Roshi Laolao, 3 Virtual World Kirin Lili, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 2 Pot of Desires, 3 Virtual World City Kauwloon, 3 Virtual World Gate King Long, 2 Emergency Teleport, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Crossout Designator, 2 Imperm, 2 Virtual World Gate Chuche, and then 1 Virtual World Gate Xuanwu. Down here in the extra deck, we got Stardust Charge Warrior, Coral Dragon, Virtual World Beast, I can never pronounce this one, Jiujiu? 1 Cloud Castle, 1 Vermilion Dragon Mech, 1 Ravenous Crocodragon Arceus, I believe, 1 Virtual World QB Shen, 1 Phantom Knights of Breaksword, 1 Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, 1 Ptolemy M7, 1 number 39 Utopia Beyond, 1 Virtual World Phoenix Fan, 1 Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger, 1 True King of All Calamities, and then finally 1 Divine Arsenal Azu Sky Thunder. And I actually just realized something that I definitely should have mentioned in the deck profile, talking a little bit about the extra deck, because some of these options might not look like they make a whole lot of sense, and they definitely don't on paper, but in practice they do a little bit more, particularly like You might be wondering why Break Sword, Gossip Shadow without Rongo, and number 39 is the only Utopia card are in this extra deck. Whereas they're typically like combo pieces of other decks, but we're kind of using them more as like fringe options here, right? Break Sword is pretty good if we've got 2 level 3s and the opponent's got a particularly problematic card we need to get rid of. We can just use Break Sword to pop it. The Gossip Shadow is really good against Nibiru. Sometimes you've just got a decent setup where you can make a Gossip Shadow before going into the rest of your plays. I haven't really done it too much, but I've definitely seen options where I can. I don't know. I need to be more just like willing to go into this card, I think, if that makes any sense. Because it's definitely like a risk in that your opponent might just not have anything for you, and then you're just wasted 2 of your level 3s, which is going to definitely limit the plays you can do. But I don't know. I feel really iffy about this card. I don't know if I've made it actually yet, but I could also just be using it wrong. So that's another thing that I would definitely would not advise or mind being advised on in the comments. And then number 39, Utopia Beyond. I haven't made this yet, but I mean, I think we're pretty much just using this for the first effect as a means to OTK, right? If our opponent's got a big board, we can just drop this, make their attack 0, and then run over their monsters with ours for lethal. So, pretty sure that's just why this is in the extra. Oh, and then of course, good old Gaia Dragon is here as an extra material if you go into Zeus there. So, okay, yeah, that's about all I want to talk about with the build itself. I think let's go ahead and get into some gameplay. Okay, this first game we're going to watch here was a nice little back and forth with Sky Strikers. Yeah, for these replays that I saved, for the last video I tried to just show off more basic combo lines, but for this one I wanted to show a bit more like involved games, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, going first here, we got a lot of combo pieces in this hand, but we're missing the protection of like Call by or Crossout, which is slightly concerning, but hopefully shouldn't be too big of a deal here. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get the Lulu out with the E-Tail because I already have the Nyannyan. We can go ahead and summon that and then get the Stardust Charge Warrior. Laolao is going to set up the King Long in our graveyard, which will allow us to bring back Lulu, which in turn will bring back Nyannyan. We're not quite 100% set up though for the multiple level 9 plays. We do need another level 6 non-tuner, which we can pretty easily search. With the King Long, we'll just get a Lili here. And now we have plays for days. 4 days, oh man. Yeah, as always, I'm going to start off with the Crocodile Dragon to get extra draws here. And I'll even use the Nyannyan's effect. Although sometimes you actually don't want to use Nyannyan's effect because sometimes if you don't, you can actually get enough to like Chuche multiple times, or sometimes if you're not careful, you might lose out on your ability to activate Chuche, but that doesn't happen too often, so. Draw Desires. The Desires draws aren't really that useful here, but that's fine. They don't have to be necessarily. Oh yeah, so here I'm actually going to use the Chuche's effect in order to lower the Shen-Shen's level down to 6. Now I can make a Cloud Castle, bring back the Shen-Shen, and still make VFD. Which this is an interesting combo line you can end up doing sometimes where you're able to make VFD without having to give up your Shen-Shen. Not that it really matters, it's definitely win more. VFD plus Chuche is the most important part, but Shen-Shen's also nice to have up just as extra, like, protection, I guess. Excuse me, oh my god, I'm so sorry. So here, had I known they were playing Sky Strikers, I definitely would have called Dark over Light. Because that would have prevented Ray's Graveyard Effect from activating. Because remember, VFD can only prevent... well, basically, VFD can prevent monster effects of that attribute from activating, but it only changes attributes of monsters that are on the field. So, if you want to negate effects of activated monster effects outside of the field, you can only do so for the attribute that you call. So, in that regard, it's nice to kind of pay attention to what your opponent's playing. Maybe see if you can get any clues if you're going turn 1 based on maybe their hand traps or their deck size or whatever. To get a better idea of what attribute you can call. Again, had I known I was playing against Virtual World here, I definitely would have called Dark. Not that it really would have mattered here much anyway, but and I don't know if my opponent was expecting VFD's effect to go away because it left the field, but nope, VFD's effect does linger. So even though the card left the board, we are not in any danger of missing out on its effect. Our opponent still is not going to be able to do anything with their Hayate or Xiezhi here. Oh yeah, so my opponent actually, okay, that was actually really interesting, right? My opponent activated Ash Blossom on the, where is it, the Kauwloon here. But I still got the effect, right? And you might be wondering, well, like, what was up with that? So, what was up with that, I think, if I understand correctly, is... So if we read Ash, right, when a card effect activates any effects, you discard this card, negate that effect. Because Kauwloon has an effect that summons cards from deck to graveyard, or from the extra deck, or no, sorry, sends cards from deck to graveyard, I think that's why they were able to Ash, but because I didn't use that effect, that was the only effect that got negated. Or rather, sorry, that was the only effect that got negated, but because I didn't use that effect, it didn't affect my Kauwloon at all. Because that is one thing that Ash can't do, is cards that specifically activate spell and trap cards from the deck, that actually doesn't work. Ash doesn't stop that. Ash can only stop cards from adding from deck to hand, summoning a monster from deck, or sending a card from deck to graveyard. So, if you're wondering why my opponent's Ash Blossom kind of resolved but didn't do anything, I'm pretty sure that's why right there. In any case here, yeah, we'll continue on with our plays. We've got the Lulu here. And I actually am going to go into a rank 6 here by increasing the Lulu's level. I'm going to go for Fan Fan. Fan Fan's not only going to allow me to banish the Xiezhi on board, but also the Ray in graveyard. Fan Fan in general is just a great monster, either when going second or for like turn 3 if you go first for the follow-up play. It's actually a lot. The effect is really comparable to, what do you call it? The Sword Soul. Oh my god, it's been so long. Nyannyan. It's been actually like, I think a couple of weeks since I've even played that deck. I need to get back onto it, honestly. But yeah, so that's how you, or rather, that's the comparison you can make there. And then, yeah, we go into the Gaia Charger, and then lay the Zeus on top of it in order to get 2 materials. That's why Gaia Charger, or, what is it called, actually? I should know this. Oh, it's under the thing here. Yeah, where is it? Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger, that's it. That's why that's important in the extra deck, is to be able to go into a 2-material Zeus after you fan like that. So, I'm not activating Zeus's effect yet, because I want to wait until my opponent activates DPE's effect. Because Zeus does not send, Zeus destroy, or Zeus does not destroy, Zeus sends. Zeus won't trigger DPE's effect, but obviously I need Zeus's effect to be the chain link after DPE's. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do here, after bringing my Shen back, is I'm going to use the Virtual Gate Kinglong in order to bait the DPE effect by trying to negate it, and then when they activate, then I'll use the Zeus and send it, but this is also going to be lethal anyway, so it didn't really matter in that regard. But because DPE was sent and not destroyed, its effect didn't get to activate, which is why I kind of did it in the way that I did. But again, it was also going for lethal, so there was that as well. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and watch the next game. All right, this game is going to be against Xiezhi. It's actually interesting. I'm trying to figure out Xiezhi versus Virtual World. Which deck is favored? Virtual World is... I think Virtual World is if it goes first. I think if Xiezhi goes first, Xiezhi is pretty decently favored. But I think Virtual World is slightly favored if it goes first. But we are going... Even though we're going second here, we got a really good going first hand as we open both Maxx and Ash. And then we also have plays for our next turn as well. So... I'm going to Maxx as soon as my opponent normal summons Kit. Obviously, I'm really familiar playing against Xiezhi that normal summon Kit means they're going to go into an Almirage and then set up plays from there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and Ash their Kit's effect, because that's going to keep a minimal amount of Tri-type like monsters in their graveyard, and is also going to limit what they're able to do as far as their plays go. Yeah, I could have gotten more draws if I allowed my opponent to continue there, but I mean, there's no reason to allow them to set up if I don't have to, right? So here we have the Kauwloon and the Lili. That alone is enough to go into plays, but having Xiezhi, Jiji, and Laolao on top of it definitely takes the or rather puts the icing on the cake, so to speak there. So, yep, I feel pretty confident being able to kind of freely do whatever I want in this scenario, because I know my opponent, even if they have a revolt, it's not live. And Xiezhi, if they don't have a live revolt, doesn't really have a whole lot of responses outside of pretty standard, like, hand traps or generic responses like imperm or call by or something like that. But, you know, my opponent certainly hasn't done anything just yet. I'm pretty sure I'm well within Nibiru range, so if they had that, I would have seen an indicator of it by this point. Okay, I think this is going to be another one of those games where yeah, so here I'm going to, I think, try to go for an OTK. Oh wait, this is going to be slightly different because I'm going to go for the Fan here, right? Oh, no, the Ptolemy M7. Huh, okay, I think I'm thinking of another game against Xiezhi. Okay, you're going to wheel the Lulu. Okay, yeah, so now we set up the OTK, right, because now we have exactly 8,000 damage on board by adding that card back to our hand. But our opponent does have the Forbidden Droplet here, which is going to be just enough here to keep us from getting exactly 8,000. They'll send the Nerval to try to activate the effect. I'm just going to call by it, so that way I can leave my opponent with fewer draws or fewer options there. So because they have Shen's attack, we're 1,400 short, but we have a Maxx, and we're able to go into VFD still on top of Chuche, on top of the Lulu we added back, on top of the spare Maxx in our hand, on top of the Ptolemy M7 that we're now going to overlay into Zeus as well. So I'm not really concerned about the 3 cards my opponent has and what those are capable of, to be honest. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, just in the wake of this, like, what can you really... And then we also, that's right, we also get to add back the Lili on top of everything else. So, like, we have literally just plays for days here. I'm going to call Fire specifically against Xiezhi here, because that's going to prevent them from, if they discard Fractal, from getting that effect, or if they end up sending a kit, from getting that effect either. So, again, like I touched on in the last game, it is important to be mindful of what deck your opponent is playing in order to make sure that you counter it appropriately with VFD. Not only thinking about negating effects on board, but the best attribute to call for negating off-board effects. And again, against Xiezhi, to stop Fractal and Kit, I figured Fire would probably be the best option to call here. So, opponent's going to summon Whiptail. As soon as they normal summon that, I'll just go ahead and Maxx. Not that I really need the advantage at this point, but I mean, it's obviously still better to have it. And I definitely want to make my opponent afraid to make a whole ton of plays here. So, they start with a Borbo, but then I think realize they can't attack directly, so they can't actually go into Zeus here. Then they just decide to stack on Chakane before going into Dryden. So, yeah, definitely glad that I went ahead and Maxx when I did. Also, I think they tried to battle for Whiptail's effect, but then, you know, Zeus, or not Zeus, the True King prevents battling. So, like, True King is just such a disgustingly good card. It really is. I'm not gonna lie, like, I definitely sympathize with people who think it's, like, awful and should be banned. I know it's banned in both TCG and OCG, and it probably should be banned, but, no, shrug, it's not, so we'll play it. Cool, alright, so that is a fairly solid win there. Yeah, I went ahead and Zeus during the end phase, even though I had the overwhelming board advantage, just to ensure that I got lethal. Obviously, even if my opponent would have had, like, even if my opponent could have had something to mess me up there, I still had all those cards in hand to be able to make more plays, so I really wasn't that concerned about it. Plus, I could have brought the Shen back from grave. That's kind of one of the big draws or strengths of Virtual World to me, is just its sense of inevitability, right? Once it gets the ball rolling, it's really hard to stop, like, Virtual. Like, once they start their combos and they're successful, it's hard to keep resources from Virtual World. They just end up having such easy access to them. That's why I think a lot of their choke points are, like, towards the beginning of their combos, just leaving them with as few options as possible, so they can't extend those options into even more options. But, alright, let's go ahead and look at the next game here. Okay, here we have a game against good old Eldritch. So we'll see how this deck handles the Golden Boy. I actually don't remember who went first here. It looks like the opponent's going first, which makes me extra glad I saved this game here. Alright, so they're going to lead with the Cursed Eldland, which is obviously going to be pretty upfront what kind of deck they are. This Maxx is not looking quite that good, given that being the case, but Nyannyan, Lulu, and Jiji definitely add up to some plays. And then the drawing the virtual gate on top of that, definitely good as well. I'm going to lead with the Nyannyan and activate the effect of Jiji here in order to send a Kauwloon. That'll let us add the Lili. We'll go ahead and discard this Chuche here just to get it in the graveyard. Now we can use Lili targeting the Jiji, but the opponent's going to activate. There can only be one, which is definitely going to be a bit of a problem for me as, you know, we typically do like to have multiple monsters on board. Plus, obviously, we can't then resolve our summon that way either. So this is where Break Sword is going to come in handy. I can just use my 2 level 3s to quickly go into Break Sword. Pop, there can only be one. Now I can activate the Virtual Gate. And we still have Lulu that we haven't used yet, so we do still have plenty of options here. I'm going to go ahead and activate Lulu to add the Chuche here, as well as send... I think I just sent an extra Nyannyan, but... No, did I send the... No, I added the Chuche, so I wouldn't have sent that. The Xuanwu, I think I sent that with Lili. I don't remember. But anyway, in any case here, we're still able to go into Shen, even though there can only be one, kind of messes up a little bit. But yeah, it's still a pretty decent option to go into. The recursion is nice, as is the banishing. Freaking banishing Eldritch, that's obviously always nice. Although it is only cards sent from field to graveyard, so that is going to limit what we can do. But we still haven't used Chuche's level altering effect, so we can actually use that to continue our plays, and then go into VFD plus Chuche. I always say Chuche like there's another U in there. I guess, excuse me, it's my eternal quest to mispronounce card names. What can you do? So yeah, we have the VFD plus Chuche set up. Since I know they're playing Eldritch, Light is definitely the attribute to call here. That's going to prevent them from using the Golden Lord's effect from their hand. They do still have the Kaiju, but that's pretty much all they're able to do here. As again, if they had an Eldritch, I called Light, which prevented them from using the effect in hand. So we'll definitely max it as soon as they Huaquero, because we're not going to get many more opportunities to get draws off of special summons against Eldritch. But I guess they decided that was enough, and then they went ahead and conceded. So, let's see. I had, looks like a Lulu, an Imperm, and then we've gotten a draw off Maxx. But assuming Lulu would have been our only live card, we still could have flipped up the face down Chuche, activated Lulu, targeted it, sent a spell, added a monster, like probably a Laolao. I don't know. From there, just adding a monster would have obviously been more than enough for us to go into plays from there. So, alright. That's all for that game. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. So this is another game against Sky Strikers, although this, I was looking at the deck list, this is actually kind of an interesting variant. It's playing a Spellbook engine as well. It's playing like 2 of the, I forget what its actual name is, everybody just calls it Blue Boy. The Stratos for Spellbook spells, and then just playing a few Spellbooks as well. So definitely interesting little tech options there. Yeah, look at this hand. We have a Virtual Gate and a Lili. So we'll go ahead and send the Nyannyan and the Xuanwu here, or the Xuanwu. And then we can special Jiji from there, and then we bring back the Nyannyan since Jiji is a level 3 monster. I'll go into Stardust Charge Warrior for the draw. Although I think, oh no, I probably sent a Lulu. Or no, I didn't send a Lulu. I definitely should have sent one. Oh, no, because I sent the Kauwloon. No. Okay, disregard. Never mind. Ignore me! Watch past Lex play. Present Lex is not paying as good attention, but definitely feels good to be able to cross out the Ash here. Just gotta love having cross out in general. Always a very nice option for these types of combo decks. We still could have gone to a rank 6 even if our opponent, you know, or even if we didn't have a way to stop the Ash here, but obviously that would not be as good as VFD plus Chuche, which is what we're going for. At the very least VFD. I think this game's actually going to only be VFD, but that's still fine. Alright, we've got the Croco Draco, so there's that. We can use the Xuanwu to bring back the Lulu, or the Lulu. I combined Lili and Lulu. And then, yeah, we can get the Shen, and then from there, like I said, we're just going to overlay into VFD. Although we actually, it looks like we're going to be able to put an additional level 9 monster out on the board. Yeah, so this is actually going to be the setup where we get both Shen plus VFD on board turn 1 as opposed to just VFD. Which is always nice, especially in a case like this where we don't have the Chuche. Just having an additional backup option in case our opponent manages to negate VFD is definitely nice. I feel like there must be another way. Maybe there's not, though. I was gonna say, I feel like there must be another way to get this set up where you have True King plus Shen Shen. Because I feel like the way I always do it, I end up with an extra Laolao left over. Which kind of makes you think, like, could I be doing something with that Laolao that I'm not seeing in the combo? Again, if any experienced virtual players are privy to what that may be, do let me know in the comments. I would love to know. So yeah, they're doing kind of their Sky Striker thing. Interesting that they chose to destroy the Shen Shen, although I guess it makes sense because they want their spells to go to the graveyard for their Sky Striker effects, so... yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, using multi-roll. Set up the Ray, go for the Link, although not that the Link will do anything. Because he can't attack, so... yeah, I don't know why my opponent went for... our last Sky Striker opponent did that too. They went for Hayate. Well, they went for Xiezhi then, but... I guess our opponent realized that Xiezhi wasn't going to activate either, and so decided not to waste it. If I had to guess, I don't know. So yet again, here I'm going to go for Fan to get rid of not only the Sky Striker Link monster, but also the Ray out of the graveyard as well. Obviously, that is very nice, so that way they can't recur their plays or Link during our turn. And then, you know, from there, I'm able to continue making plays thanks to Lulu and Nyannyan. And then, I guess the opponent's face-down monster really wasn't a threat because then they just concede at that point. I was, I think, actually going to break sword and just pop the face-down monster and try to go for lethal. No, that would have been 300 off, so... I think I had a way to get lethal, I'm sure I did, but the opponent gave the game to us either way, so I guess in that regard it doesn't particularly matter. So, okay, we've got a couple more games to look at. Let's jump into the next one now. Okay, so here's a game against the mirror match, which is definitely interesting because I think this is the only real good back and forth of the mirror match I've had so far. And any other time I've played the mirror match so far testing this deck, either... basically, one of us opens a really bricky hand and concedes almost instantly. But, here I've got an interesting hand. Oh, wait, I actually remember this game. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So, yeah, here we're able to use the Jiji in order to set up the Surge for the Lulu. As long as you're able to set up that Surge for the Lulu, usually by then you're good to go on plays. Like, you'll have plays to go into. If you can get the Lulu searched and summoned out. Not too uncommon, so yeah, here we'll go for the Stardust Charge Warrior for the draw as always. That E-Telly is a really good draw, though I think we would have had plans anyway, right? Yeah, because we had the Xuanwu in the graveyard, so I could have just brought back the Lulu, which then would have brought back the Nyannyan, but again, ripping the E-Telly from the top of the deck definitely does help in that regard as well. And here we can even chain block the draw. Not that it really matters, because obviously our opponent would have ashed much more important things if they did have the ash, but that's still nice to be able to do, I guess. Okay, so here I'm going to go for the Coral Dragon to go for an extra draw. And because it's... rather, I only have the level 3 tuners engraved, and I could have gone for a different level 6 Synchro, but I just decided we'll just use the Coral Dragon and get the extra draw while we're at it. And then from there we're able to overlay into VFD, getting our good old turn 1 setup of VFD plus Chuche. Again, I know I keep making this point, and I've been asking this a lot in the last 2 videos, but I just really hope I'm doing these combos right. I'm ending on VFD plus Chuche, so I assume I'm at least doing something right, but yeah, if I could be doing more, as always, do let me know in the comments. Anyway, yeah, so we're playing against a mirror match, so as soon as my opponent Kauwloons, I'm actually going to cross out here. I probably could have saved this cross out for a better moment, but my Kauwloons are dead at this point, and I know Kauwloon is like the go-to like definitive start of virtual world plays, or just having a gate in general, which is why I not only crossed out the Kauwloon, but I'm also now using Chuche on this Kinglong as soon as it's activated. Basically, I know my opponent's going to be able to combo out here, and I know my Imperm is not going to be able to do much to stop them, because Imperm, negating onboard effects really doesn't hurt Virtual World that much, so Imperm is going to be not very impactful in this matchup. So that being the case, I need to make their initial plays as awkward as possible. And we're going to do so again by using Crossout Designator on the Kauwloon, and then also now using the Chuche on the Kinglong as it is resolving. So now they have to summon monsters and again just make more awkward plays, which, as we can see here, they're having to do as a normal summon a Lulu to search for a second Lulu to special that, because Lulu is pretty much the, not the only way, but one of the very few ways you can actually extend your plays with draws from the deck there. So they did have a Jiji as well, so they are going to have a decent amount of plays, but we do know at the very least that they're not going to be able to battle with us this turn, thanks to VFD. Even though they don't use that many onboard effects, we can still at least take solace in that knowledge, if nothing else. And then they just go ahead and end here without really doing much of anything else, which again is very, very nice for me. We love to see that. We love to see that. They'll flip up their own Chuche on our Chuche here. That's whatever, it's fine. I'm not too fussed about it, honestly. Yeah, sure, all Harpie's Feather Dust already, even though it's already been used, but... Ah, yes, and then I want to imperm my opponent's Shen here, because I do plan on using graveyard-based stuff. Well, basically, like, if my Shen dies here, I don't want it to get banished. So that's why I went ahead and impermed the opponent's Shen there. Plus, getting the Shen on board means that we can start using our virtual world effects. I don't have to normal summon the Jiji first, so... Okay, yeah, it looks like we're going into good old Break Sword yet again. Oh yeah, I'm actually going to use Break Sword as a means of going into VFD here. Because it's kind of interesting, right? Like, this scenario. Like, I remember during the actual game itself, like, while I was playing it live, really stopping and thinking during that battle phase of how I wanted to battle, right? Because there were so many different ways I could have done that. Where I could have... There's the line I did, which was Break Sword, battles over Lulu, then go to main phase 2. There was the option to destroy both of our Shen-Shens, like run them into each other, but I decided not to do that, because if I did that, my opponent would just be able to bring Shen-Shen back during their next main phase, and then I would have had to VFD. So what I'm thinking is, I'll just leave their Shen-Shen on the board, or not VFD, Zeus is what I meant. So I'll just leave their Shen-Shen on the board, and then during their turn, when they start to make plays, I'll Zeus, and Shen won't be able to come back because it has then been sent during that main phase. So, but I was, yeah, like I said, I was also thinking about like battling Shen over Lulu and then using Break Sword effect on their Shen, but I realized that was the worst line. So I think I picked the best of those options here. I'm pretty sure I did, but oh yeah, and then we'll add Lulu back during the end phase with Jiji. I always forget about Jiji's effect during the end phase. It just always ends up being like a nice little bonus, I guess. So that is one reason to have activated the Zeus early. Oh, that's right, because I knew my opponent had this Lulu in hand, and I wanted to make sure that I waited to Zeus until they had used the Lulu already. That's right. So that was actually intentional. However, in response to them lowering the level... Oh, I guess they're not going to summon here. Okay, yeah, because I was playing on VFDing maybe when they lowered the level, but then I was like, well, I'll see what level 9 synchro they go into. But then they didn't go into a level 9 synchro, so I guess they were just trying to bait me either way here. We do get an additional use of Zeus thanks to that monster being destroyed by battle, by the way, so that's really nice. Oh yeah, when my opponent uses Laolao, I'll definitely go ahead and activate Zeus here. And I actually end up using the Zeus effect again here, because basically this is going to end up saving my Zeus, because the Chuche won't be on board when it resolves, so that means the effect won't activate, and I'll get to keep my Zeus. Even though I lost all the materials, I'll still get to keep the Zeus. And then, because the Laolao is the only card in my opponent's hand, it wasn't able to activate. I know they're out of plays, and then I have my Zeus as well as the Lulu in hand, so pretty reasonably confident that I'm able to go into even more plays next turn. At the very least, 4,600 damage, which is going to cause my opponent here to concede. So, alright, let's go ahead and go to... I believe this is the last game here coming up. Yep, this will be the last game of the video here against Megumi, which I feel like is a name I see quite a bit in Diamond 1. So Megumi, if you're out there, what's up? I feel like I've played against you a lot, and I enjoy playing against you. Playing Trizu this time with Rescue Cats. Looks like we'll be taking the first turn here. Gonna lead with the good old Kauwloon for the Chuche. Got a Lili and a Jiji in hand, so we definitely like to see that. but opponents got Maxx. We don't like to see that. So, yeah, Virtual World is one of those decks where you do have to get a lot of summons in order to get your plays off. So I'm just going to end here and not give my opponent any more additional draws from Maxx. There is a bit of an argument to maybe combo until at the very least Chuche is live, but again, that gives him so many draws. I really am just not a fan of doing that, honestly. Okay, so opponent summons the Nerval, goes for the Almirage, adds a Fractal, but then uses that, sends a kit, sets one, and passes. So I'm like, wow, their hand must have been really dead. But then I'm starting to think, like, okay, if their hand was that dead, what is in their hand that they still have 4 cards they can't use? And I'm figuring, oh, it's got to be a whole bunch of hand traps, right? Because what else does Xiezhi play besides, like, the Tribe and Zodiac cards? It plays a ton of disruption and hand traps. So, like, even though this is a good turn for my opponent to have for me in the regard that they didn't manage to commit really much of anything to the board or put into play, I do still have to be mindful of hand traps here. So I'm going to lead with Harpie's Feather Duster just to get rid of this back row. They'll respond with a call by, just get rid of the Nyannyan. That's fine. I'd rather them do it now than later for sure. Alright, and then now we can use Jiji's effect on the Chuche. Okay, so here I want to talk about this Ash Blossom, right? My opponent activates the Ash Blossom, and as you can see, I actually let it resolve, even though I have the Crossout Designator in hand. The reason I let it resolve is that I have this King Long in my graveyard, which I'm going to use in order to banish that, add the Lulu, and then send probably the Chuche from my hand to the graveyard. So that is actually my main plan here, but I wanted to activate Jiji first to probe for hand traps, which we did find one. We found the Ash. However, given how many cards my opponent has in hand, and the fact that they also Maxx last turn to get some of those cards, and the fact that they haven't played, you know, much of anything yet, I'm reading Nibiru really hard here. I'm like, they have to have Nibiru. If they don't have Nibiru, they have another hand trap that I want to be able to deal with. So, because this Jiji is non-essential, I'm going to let this Ash Blossom resolve. Like, even with this negate, I might not be able to OTK, but I know I can still make VFD with the resources that I have. So, yeah, that's why I let that Ash go, if you're wondering why that was, why I did that there. Okay, so we can use Lulu, targeting the Laolao. We'll send another King Long and then add the Laolao. I think I said that wrong, actually, but anyway, we can still normal the Jiji, so we're not missing out on any combo like potential with it. Yeah, we'll go into Stardust Charge, get our draw, special the Laolao, bring back the Lulu to make another, or not another, but to make L level 9. Ah, that's right, because they call by the Nyannyan, we don't get that back, so that one is going to fizzle, but I think we can just OTK during this turn as I'm looking at this hand. Okay, so yeah, here my opponent did end up having the Nibiru. So I was correct in my read, and as a result, I'm able to cross that Designator and call it. This was such a satisfying moment. This was such like an I knew it, I told you so, and then my opponent just instantly concedes. Yeah, like I said, that was a very satisfying moment. It was a very much like an I knew it, you know, kind of a reaction that I had. Just based on the way my opponent was playing. That's actually like a good reason to play a variety of decks, and why I like to try to play a variety of decks is that it's the best way to learn them, right, for when you're playing against them. And Xiezhi, you know, obviously being by far the deck I've played the most on the channel thus far. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what the opponent's hand is like based on how they play it, just from being in similar positions so many times. So, okay, cool. That's all I've got for gameplay for this one. Let's go ahead and move now to the outro. Alright, everybody. I want to thank you so very much for watching this video. As always, I greatly appreciate you watching to the end like this. I'm also appreciative if you're commenting and subscribing. Comments, as I've said multiple times over the last couple of days. I'm new to Virtual World. If you have Virtual World tips when it comes to gameplay or deck building, I would love to hear from you, so that I can apply those tips to my practice and then, yeah, play the deck more optimally moving forward. Like I said, even though I just picked this deck up and I usually like to have a lot more time to learn a deck before I ladder with it, I'm really thinking I might just do some laddering with Virtual World here at the start of Season Excuse me. Oh my god. If you're annoyed by my coughing and stuffiness, don't worry. I assure you, I'm more annoyed by it. And I do apologize if you are. But yeah, no. I want to use Virtual World when I'm climbing during Season 7. Season 7 is definitely going to be a more laid-back climb, as the start of Season 6 was as well. Still going to try to aim for a Week 1 Diamond one as always, or like within about that time frame, the first like 7 to 10 days, but might be 2. I don't know. It could be 2 weeks. Who knows? Whatever. We'll get there. We always do. So, I would like to get there with Virtual World though. Like I almost feel like I'm trying to make up for lost time. I'm like, oh, these seasons I could have been playing this deck. It's so much fun, and now I want to get in as many games before like Flows and Adventure come out, which I think might end up pushing Virtual World on the back burner a little bit as far as the meta goes. But we'll see. Only time will tell. But that's about all I've got for this one. So without further ado, this is XX signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.